Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
This is Bill Horan, welcoming you to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to your success. Can a story about a cow be the key to success? Listen to the words of Dr. Camilo Cruz, and you decide. Dr. Cruz, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure, Bill. It's a great pleasure to be here in your program.
Now, your book is called Once Upon a Cow, so naturally we have to ask you, what's this deal about the cow?
Well, the story of the cow is a tale about getting rid of excuses, about those limiting attitudes and beliefs and bad habits that keep us bound to a life of mediocrity. And what I found is that as much as most of us aspire to greatness, we often settle for second place. So in this particular story, the cow symbolizes all of those excuses that keep us tied to a life of mediocrity.
And then I think the cow in the story was either killed or died or something, and the family went through some difficult periods, but after that, it became more prosperous and successful and happier than ever before. Am I correct?
That is it. The story of the cows is a story of a very poor family that lived in a rundown little shack, and the structure was at the point of collapse, and water leaked through the roof. In other words, they lived in complete poverty. But oddly enough, the family had a most unusual possession. In fact, quite an amazing possession under the circumstances. They own a cow, and the cow, gave them the milk, which was the only thing that they had, the only food of any nutritional value, but it also served an even bigger purpose. It made them feel that at least they were not in complete misery, that at least they had something. So it's that idea of, don't complain, because at least you have something. Count your blessings, that attitude. And one day, the unthinkable happened. Somebody kills their cow. And the first thing that comes to mind is that if with the cow they were poor, imagine what's going to happen now that they don't have their cow. But, with many stories, when you hit rock bottom, you have two choices. You either sit there and die and wait to die, or you bounce back. And what this family did was they bounced back. They say, well, we don't have the cow. Let's start doing some other things. And in that doing, they found their way out of that poverty that they lived in. And they realized that this cow that they so cherish as their prized possession was in fact a chain that had them shackled to this life of misery and this life of mediocrity. And obviously the great lesson of this story is that we all have cows in our lives, and our cows are our excuses, our justifications, our pretests, those little lies that we tell ourselves to try to justify where we are, even though we're not happy with that place where we are.
So all those little stories like, gee, I can't go back to school, I have a wife and kids, or I have to take care of my elderly father, or, I'm a little too old to go back now and get my degree. That's just an excuse, the same as the cow, not to move ahead. Am I correct? That
is exactly what it is, Bill. Some of them sound really good. And we try to convince ourselves and convince others that those are not excuses, that they're reality, that they're true. But when it all comes down to it and we close our eyes and we go to bed, we realize that we're not even convincing ourselves with those things because they're not serving any purpose. Because no matter how believable they are, they're not changing our reality. The fact is that, you can sit down and say, well, I want to succeed, but, the economy. The economy is the way it is. The government is not helping. This is what's happening. It's not my fault. And it might sound good. You may find allies when you share this with other people, but the fact remains that unless you get rid of that cow, unless you get rid of that excuse, unless you accept full responsibility for your success and act on that, you would still be in the same place down the road.
And from every show, we take a few quotes or a few ideas. And you mentioned in the book, excuses become logical clarifications
That
of irrational fears.
You know, Bill, the thing is that nobody likes to admit that they're given excuses.
Exactly.
I mean, nobody. It's kind of like the same thing when you ask someone, are you optimistic? Are you an optimist? And they say, sure, I'm an optimist. But you ask a pessimist if they're a pessimist. They will never admit to it. They will always say, I'm not a pessimist. I'm just a realist. It sounds better. So instead of excuses, we call them logical explanations. Our fears become sensible precautions. Our low expectations are simply a more realistic outlook. But we're changing the words. But the fact is that no matter how you call them, they're holding you back. They're holding you back from achieving the life that you truly deserve and the life you truly want. And, in fact, I spent a whole chapter in my book talking about the fact that many of these cows, many of these excuses have been, when repeated often enough and shared by many, they even become all proverbs. They become, one of those that you go, as the old saying goes. And you think that these are pearls of popular wisdom, but they're simply cows, excuses disguised as this old sayings.
And I like the way you say they're irrational fears. So you're telling us that they're not real fears. It's not something that's going to kill us if we open the closet door. If we try to be a salesman and we never did sales before, we might be successful, we might not, but it's not going to kill us.
Absolutely, but you know what? The biggest tragedy is that many of us don't even take that first step because we go, well, I've never been good at selling. And I ask some people, well, have you sold anything? Well, never. So how do you know you've never been good at it if you never attempted? So it's irrational, that attitude. There are other people that they're asked to speak in public and they go, oh, no, forget it. Not me. I've never been good for that. And I said, well, when was the last time? How do you know you're not good for it? And some people tell me, well, let me tell you how it all began. When I was 5 years old, and they're 50, but they're still living in a reality of when they were 5 years old. And ever since, they've been telling the same story. And it gotten to the point that they believe it. And they say, I must be just as bad speaking in public today as I was when I was 5 years old, which, of course, is irrational as well.
And the funny thing, we like our sports heroes to break records and to hit 3 home runs in a game or 70, 80, 90 in a season, throw 3 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, yet we don't want to try those things for ourselves because we never did them.
No. You know why? Another thing, Bill, is that we have been taught that the enemy of success is failure. In fact, that's the reason, or that's why the whole book got started. Some years ago, I was in Buenos Aires in Argentina doing a seminar for some 8,000 people, and I asked the whole audience, what's the opposite of success? And as you can imagine, everybody answered failure. And, the first thing I thought is I would have answered probably the same way sometime before that. But then I realized, wait a minute, failure cannot be the enemy. Failure teaches us lessons. Failure contains wisdom that otherwise we would not have been exposed to had not been for that failure. So failure cannot be the enemy. And right there and then is when it hit me. I said the real enemy of success is not failure, it's mediocrity. It's that attitude of just getting by, of settling for second place, counting your blessings and say, well, don't complain, at least you got something. There are many other people that are worse than you are, and you settle for that, and that is the true enemy, that mediocrity that we didn't intend to live in the middle of, but somehow we just found our way into our lives without us even noticing it, and that's what we got to get rid of.
Dr. Cruz, I just want to mention to our audience, if someone is just tuning in, our guest today is Dr. Camilo Cruz, C-R-U-Z. His book is called Once Upon a Cow. And if some of this is resounding with you and you're saying, yeah, maybe that's me making all those excuses, or that's my father or my brother or my sister, might be a good idea to pick up this book, Once Upon a Cow, find out a little more about it, and instead of having that mediocre life and in 10 years or 30 years looking back and saying, you know, when I was a little kid, no one patted me on the head and said, we hope you have a good mediocre life. Just be safe, get a job, don't do anything exciting. You'd say, that's not what I want. Well, you read this book and you start to realize you want to take a chance. You want to get out there. If you at least have a story to tell, but what did you do? Did you take that chance? Did you take those medical boards to get in medical school, the law school test, the college admissions exam? Did you go for your CPA certificate? Dr. Cruz, what are some of the excuses you hear people making on a regular basis?
Well, you know, what's interesting is that, as I mentioned before, many of these excuses have been repeated so often that they become old sayings. And one of them, for example, and you hear it all the time, is when you ask someone to take on something new, to do something that probably they haven't done before, and they answer with the all so famous, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
And I was just going to say that.
They always say that. Or the other, well, once a thief, always a thief. And these things, what they're really saying is, you know, there is a point in life after which it's impossible to learn anything new. If you had bad habits in your past, well, that's it. That's life. That comes with your chromosomes. That's who you are. You can't change that. And, of course, that's ridiculous. In fact, you mentioned something before that resonates with one of those old sayings that I mentioned here in the book, and is the famous "better safe than sorry." You know, because every time I hear that is better safe than sorry. Of course, I understand that we shouldn't do things that are stupid or that put our lives in jeopardy, but many people use that "better safe than sorry" to say, you know what? Don't take any risks. Don't try anything new. Don't go into the unknown. Just keep it safe. Just do the same thing you've been doing so far. You know, I know it's not the best. I know you're not living the kind of life, but you know what? You will try to do something else and you'll be sorry. And it's that attitude that keeps us bound to a life of mediocrity. And every time I use this word, Bill, mediocrity, I know that there's a lot of people who may feel a little offended by it because it's a harsh word. But that is what it is. That is the kind of life that we accept to live if we allow excuses to take control of our lives and tell us what to do and what not to do, or what to think and what not to think.
I think you had a story, too, in the book. I think the gentleman was a pilot, and it's the beginning of one of the chapters, and I think he wanted to be a stock and bond trader, and he always found that fascinating, and people told him not to take the chance. He then went about getting out of his being a pilot. He became a trader, and he says he's never been happier.
You know, and one of the things I wanted to do with this book, and just this is at the beginning of the book. When I first wrote the book, I released it. This is some years back. I released it immediately as an ebook, so people could download it. And then what I found was that in less than 3 months, we had more than 250,000 people who had downloaded the book. So when we were somewhere around 50,000, I sent an email to all of the people who had downloaded the book. And I didn't ask them, of course, if they had liked the book or if they had learned anything, because I found out that every time you ask someone, do you like the book, they would say yes, even if they never read it.
Sure.
So what I asked them was, have you killed any cow? The whole email was, hi, have you killed any cow? And, of course, this required for them to have read the book and know what it was all about. What's surprising is that in less than 6 weeks, we got over 11,000 emails from all over the world, from 105 countries, from all over the world, and people sharing stories of, you know, this was my cow. This is the excuse that I had allowed to hold me back all my life. and I finally got rid of it. I made a decision. I'm not going to let it control my life again. I was so excited about that response that I said, I have to choose some of the best cows, the most representative cows, excuses that people are sharing, and I'm going to start each chapter with one of those stories. And that's what I do with the book. I share some stories of people who gave me the permission to share their story with others.
Dr. Cruz, my producer, is going to kill me if I don't take a brief break at this point in the show, but we're certainly going to come back. But right now, we just want to remind our audience that you're listening to The Secrets of Success. My name is Bill Horan. If you'd like to purchase a CD copy of this program, you can send a check or a money order for $10 payable to Nassau Community College, care of WHPC, The Secrets of Success, 1 Education Drive, Garden City, New York, 11530. But please ask for program series number 726. This show is produced at the studios of WHPC 90.3 FM at Nassau Community College.